Craig Roberts. In Vietnam, I was a trained Marine Corps sniper. I spent a year in Vietnam, bolt-action rifle, making kills with precision, universal scope. I'm now a 25-year veteran police officer, and I'm going to talk for a second about the Mannlicher Carcano action and how it works, and what was wrong with the supposed Oswald rifle on the 6th floor on that day in 1963. This is a Mannlicher Carcano rifle. It's a little bit different than Oswald's in the sense that the barrel mechanism out here is a little bit different. But from here back, the mechanism is the same. This particular rifle is unique in the sense that it has a side-mounted scope. That means that the scope is offset to one side. It's mounted that way for a very particular reason. The reason being is this particular rifle has to be loaded with a charger clip. The charger clip is a 6-round clip that looks just like this. And it has to be loaded into the magazine well, because this rifle has a fixed magazine. The fixed magazine holds the 6-round clip. You cannot load this rifle 1 round at a time into the magazine because there's no feed lips that will keep the rounds in place. Therefore, the rounds have to be inserted and the clip pushed home all the way until it locks before the first round can load. According to the evidence that was found on the 6th floor, only 4 rounds can be accounted for. 3 empties that were right next to the window that the supposed shots were taken from, and 1 that was found inside the weapon in the chamber when the rifle was found at the opposite diagonal end of the book's depository. For some reason, whoever went up with this rifle and supposedly used it decided to only take 4 rounds that day when they only cost 5 cents a piece, which is rather unique. So we'll remove 2 rounds, and we'll take the charger clip with 4 rounds. We'll take these and we will load them into the weapon, lock them into place, and try to duplicate the action and activity of what must have happened if Oswald or anyone else would have attempted to use this weapon on that day from that position, ignoring all of the ballistics involved, ignoring the downward angle shot, and all the other problems that would have had to have happened in the 5.6 seconds that Oswald fired, or 10 seconds, or 15 seconds. Now we're going to check the first round. The first round is now home. We then take and sight the weapon. We're following the motorcade. We're looking out through the window. We're ignoring all of all of the problems that we're going to have with heartbeat, rhythm, breathing, relaxation. We're going to ignore adrenaline completely, and we're going to try to establish a sight picture and take the first shot. We just took the first shot. We now have to remove the rifle after it's kicked to chamber the second shot. And we'll notice that the round went about 8 feet away. That's standard. It's absolutely normal. We now are ready to chamber the second shot. To chamber the second shot, we now reestablish the proper eye relief, which is the distance from the eye to the scope. We set the crosshairs on the target again, attempt to keep on it. We take up the trigger slack, we control our breathing, we control our adrenaline and emotions, we take the second shot. Once we take the second shot, we hit, eject, and it goes in a entirely different position.
Okay, this is not at all cool.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Anytime you're very excited to see your apparently loading the weapon, I'm not very excited.
3, 2.
I'm Craig Roberts. 1965 to 1966, I was a Marine sniper in Vietnam. At a certain particular time, I had 18 confirmed kills in Vietnam, and I feel I know a little bit about ballistics. Right now, I'm a 25-year veteran police officer, and I'm here tonight to talk about the Mannlicher Carcano 6.5 millimeter rifle and the cyclic operation and what it takes to make this rifle work. This is quite similar to the rifle that was found on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository on the 22nd of November 1963. The main difference, this is a carbine version which has a shorter barrel, but from here back the action is almost identical to the Oswald rifle, the one supposedly used by Oswald.
Come on in, Bill.
Airwalk you down. You can be a co-conspirator. Yeah.
3, 2.
I'm Craig Roberts. In 1965 to 1966, I was United States Marine sniper in the Republic of Vietnam. By the end of my tour, I had 18 confirmed kills. Now I'm a 25-year police officer, and I've spent the last 7 years investigating the Kennedy assassination. I'm here tonight to talk about the 6.5mm Carcano rifle. This one is quite similar to the one that was found on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository on the 22nd of November, 1963. The difference of this one is this particular Mannlicher Carcano 6.5mm bolt-action rifle has a shorter barrel and it has a little bit less wood furniture on the front of the stock. Other than that, the action itself is identical to Oswald's supposed rifle. This particular rifle that he used had an offset mounted scope. You'll notice it is offset to one side, the left-hand side of the weapon. The reason that this has to have a side mount scope is because the ammunition has to be fed in vertically from the top to the bottom into the magazine well. You'll notice in the magazine well there is a finger that reaches up and pushes on the bottom of the bullets once they're inserted. They're inserted in a 6-round clip, such as this, in a vertical line. The clip itself goes into the weapon with the bullets, unlike the Mausers and the other weapons of its day. This weapon cannot be loaded with single rounds put into the magazine because there's no feed lips to hold the rounds in place. On the day that these shots were supposedly taken from the Texas School Book Depository, only 4 rounds were accounted for. 3 empties were next to the window that we call the sniper's nest. 1 was found in the chamber diagonally across the 6th floor behind some cartons. These rounds can be loaded with only 4 in the clip. However, it's a little bit difficult because they are loose, but we'll go ahead and try to load these in here. And if we catch it just right and lock it in place, then we can then load the rounds into the magazine. At this time, I'd also like to point out that there's a hole in the bottom of the magazine well. This hole is there for a very particular reason. The cyclic operation of this weapon is as follows. When the bolt closes, it chambers the first round into the chamber and readies the weapon for firing. After you pull the trigger, the firing pin strikes the round. You then work the bolt to the rear, extracting and ejecting the spent cartridge. As you move it forward again, you strip the second round off and put it into the chamber. Repeat the procedure until you get to the last round. At this point, what we see is that the last round in this weapon strips out of the clip, and at that time, the clip falls out the bottom of the weapon, which is very relevant to the case. So for purposes of demonstration, we'll chamber the first round. These are dummy rounds, and we'll do exactly what supposedly Oswald did that day. He sighted in, he watched his target approach, he did not fire. As the target came down the street directly toward him, decreasing in range and angle and cleared the windshield, he still did not fire. He held his fires, almost stopped as it went around the 120-degree curve. And then as he followed it down the street toward the triple overpass, he contended with water pipes behind him, the angle of the wall, the window, and the trees. At that time, he lined his head up with the scope and attempted to get a perfect, clear, and unobstructed view of the target with a clear, sharp picture of the crosshairs and a blurry target. That would have to be done to make an accurate shot. Once he was ready, ignoring adrenaline, blood pumping, breathing, emotions, and everything else, he squeezes the trigger and fires the first round. The weapon kicks, and he has to take his head away from the scope to chamber the next round. If he doesn't, then what we find is the round is ejected and flies almost 8 feet away, is that the bolt would hit him in the cheek. So therefore, he has to remove his head, which removes his eye away from the sight picture. He then chooses the second round. He takes the second shot, fires, works the bolt, moves that one. Third round. He then replaces the weapon, attempts to gain the sight picture, fires and takes his last shot. He then ejects that round. It falls a completely different location. He then loads the final and 4th round, but does not fire. And watch very carefully at what happens at this point below the magazine. As you can see, the clip fell to the floor, almost vertically under the weapon. Oswald then supposedly runs through the books, all the way around the cases, to the diagonal opposite end of the warehouse, hides the weapon in this position between some boxes. He then runs down the stairs, 4 flights, down the hall, into the break room, takes money out of his pocket, buys a bottle of Coke, takes the Coke, opens it, drinks half of it, and then is discovered by a Dallas police officer. Time lapse approximately a minute and a half. And he's not breathing hard, nor is he sweaty, and he's just put 3 rounds downrange into 2 living human beings. The main key in this particular demonstration was the fact that without that clip, this weapon would not function. The clip was not found, it wasn't there, it wasn't listed, it did not appear in any documentation until later on in the Warren Commission report, where it received 1 line. And most importantly, the clip that supposedly showed up in evidence at a later date had no police officer's initial, they had no date that would have been scratched in for chain of evidence and control and custody of evidence. We have a problem in the sense that without this clip, this weapon could not have been used.